We're talking about how to start an LLC in Connecticut, and we're going to be walking through this document behind me, which is going to serve as a checklist of ways to get your LLC set up. But before we go into the specifics of setting up your LLC, I want to talk about terms such as piercing the corporate veil, commingling funds, registered agents, pass-through taxation. We're also going to be talking about how the LLC renewal process works, business licenses, and permits. So if you're not familiar with all of these topics, what we're going to do is we're going to actually zoom out a little bit and give an example case study of starting an LLC. And we're going to do this so that you can understand exactly what an LLC does so that we can zoom in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to help you set up your LLC within the state of Connecticut. And this video is as of 2024. So hopefully this will be the most up-to-date video that you're going to find on all this information. Now, what I want to do first is go to this right here and do this drop down, and we're going to talk about what an LLC does for you. It's two things. It offers limited liability protection, and it also offers pass-through taxation. Now, let's go through an example of owning a coffee shop without an LLC. What that looks like is you have the business owner in the center here. On the left-hand side, you have their personal home, car, and bank account. And on the right-hand side, you have the business assets. So that could be the physical location, the point of sale, the business bank account, the espresso machine, the lights. Everything is tied back to the business owner, which creates a lot of liability. Now, you can see that it looks very different when you own an LLC that owns the coffee shop. Now what you have is the business owner on the left-hand side with their personal assets, which is, personal bank account, home, car. And on the right-hand side, we have what we're calling Acme Coffee LLC, and that has all of those assets within the actual business underneath it. The important part is the red division in the middle. That is something that we call the corporate veil. Now, if you recall in the beginning, we talked about a couple terms. Right now, I want to break down piercing the corporate veil, and I want to do that through the example of commingling funds. So what happens here with commingling funds is a lot of times the new business owner that gets set up, and even if they get their LLC set up, they don't get their business bank account set up right away. And when you start running business transactions through this personal bank account over here, it's something called commingling funds. So let's say that you were to be sued because somebody got hurt at the coffee shop. They hire an attorney. The attorney that's suing you is going to look for cracks in your LLC. If they're able to present to a judge that you've been commingling funds and the judge agrees with them, they may grant them permission to pierce the corporate veil. So what happens there is this division in between your business and personal assets disappears, and they're able to come after not only your business assets, but your personal assets as well. So now you can start to see how understanding these terms and how they function together, you're like, oh, okay, that's why I need to get a business bank account set up as soon as possible. So understanding these things is really crucial for your new business. Now, next what I want to talk about is an explanation of pass-through taxation. A lot of people get confused with LLCs and taxation. They think there's like a tax benefit to setting up the LLC. There is not. You are still going to get deductions if you had like a sole proprietorship. But what it does do is it offers pass-through taxation. So Acme Coffee LLC, it grossed $140,000. You have $90,000 of expenses. You have $50,000 of net income. That net income flows through or passes through, if you ever hear it called flow-through taxation, same thing, to your personal tax return. And then the IRS is taxing the business owner. This is helpful because it doesn't create like extra work, not a lot of extra work as far as your taxes are concerned. But there's also a cool thing too, that the LLC is flexible. And what it does is in the future, you can apply an S-Corp designation to reduce your tax burden. So yes, the LLC doesn't reduce your tax burden, but in the future, when you're making over $40,000 to $50,000 of net income, an S-Corp will reduce your taxes. And the cool thing is the LLC is flexible enough to just be able to morph into an S-Corp designation. So we're going to talk about that in a future video in this series, but I just wanted to tease that right now because that's a really important thing to understand. It's not just about getting the LLC set up in this video, it's also about prepping you so that you're optimizing your business years down the road. Now what we have here, before LLC formation, what we need to do is get this checklist for yourself. There's some cool features on here. There's a QR code on the screen that you can scan. You can also get this checklist for free just by clicking the link in the description below. But what you'll see is there's a glossary of terms, which is helpful. There may be things that are popping up that you're unfamiliar with. This video right here on LLC scams, highly suggest watching that. It'll probably save you $150 because you're going to get these mailers that are scams. But also the bonuses section here. There's an AI chatbot, which is pretty cool. You can ask it different questions like, how do I register an EIN, which we're actually going to explain later in this video, but you can get specific and say, what do I need to know in the state of Connecticut when I'm getting my LLC set up? And this is going to answer these questions for you. You can also use this to brainstorm ideas for your new business name. We have a free charitable opportunity, a yearly accounting calendar, which we're going to explain in a future video in this series. And again, at this point, you might be feeling a little overwhelmed looking at all this content. Just take a breath. And what we're going to do is we're going to break this down video by video so that you are set up for success for your LLC after it's being formed. What I want to talk about right now is deciding which route to go, though, when you're setting up your LLC. There's really 3 paths. You can use the Connecticut state website. That's with the Secretary of State. You can go with online LLC services. These are like popular legal tools. Or you can go through a business attorney. Which path you go kind of depends on your specific needs, and it's a different video altogether to deep dive on that. And what we're going to do in this video is just go through the state website, and we're going to go specifically if you were to mail in the PDF. So pretty much the hardest way to do it, and then we're going to show you easier ways as you go. Number 1 step is deciding on a business name for your LLC. What I'll say is that you don't have to have the perfect name. Like we showed Acme Coffee LLC. That can be your LLC name, but then underneath it, you can have a fictitious name or also called a DBA, a doing business as name. So it could be Espresso Yourself Cafe. Your brand name could be one of those items, and the LLC can just simply be the name of the LLC that owns that asset. So getting the perfect name isn't necessary, but what you do want to do is we want to make sure that LLC name is unique within the state of Connecticut. So what we're going to do is we're going to search the state directory to see if the name that you have is available. So I'm going to scroll down here to Connecticut, and then this is an online database provided by the state of Connecticut. And then what you can do here is like, let's say I do Huskies, right? Like that's going to be a pretty popular name. There's going to be a lot of different businesses. There's 26 resulting here in the name Huskies. But if I just kind of jam out my keyboard here, whoops, I lost it, and do a search here, what you'll see here is there's 0 results found. That is what you're looking for on the state database, is you want to see 0 results found for your name. Now you can have like different names, so it could be like Husky Painting, Husky Concrete, that kind of thing, but that's where you end up having to do a little bit more research. I think the ideal thing is to find one with 0 results. So then once you have a unique LLC name, now you can get to the process of forming your LLC. So what we're going to talk about here is we're going to lump these first 3 things together. We're going to talk about registering your LLC name, writing of articles of organization, and assigning a registered agent. The articles of organization is the actual document that gets filed with the state that forms your LLC officially. Now, the registering your LLC name, that is simply like once you come up with your name, like Espresso Yourself Cafe, you can register that LLC name so you own that name, but then you still need to file the articles of organization. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click on the state directory again, and the bullet points here are going to show us the specifics of filing your articles of organization, but we want to go to Connecticut and then go through line by line of explaining this here. So what we have here is something called the Certificate of Organization. This is the articles of organization for the state of Connecticut. You'll see as of making this video in 2024, there's a filing fee of $120. You have to pay this to the Secretary of State. There's no way around this. If you go through the state website, online legal tools, or a business attorney, you are paying that $120. But you're going to put your information in here, the name of the limited liability company, the principal office address of it, and then the mailing address as well. Now, those are pretty simple, but number 4 is where people get tripped up. It says appointment of registered agent. And then it just kind of asks you like for their address, and you might be wondering like, well, what is this exactly? Well, a registered agent is a third party that handles important information and documentation for your business. It is required by law that they have a physical mailing address within the state of Connecticut, and it cannot be a P.O. box. Now, what they do is, like, let's say you were being sued again. What you get is a service of process notice. They're going to make sure that you're getting that notice, which is essentially saying that you're being summoned to court, and they're going to make sure that you have all the important information and documentation when you're showing up to court. So it's an important aspect of maintaining your LLC. And it can't be something where you have like a registered agent on file and then you get rid of the service. Like, you need to have a proper registered agent on file going forward. Now, once you have this set up, what we're going to do is your business address, Connecticut mailing address. If agent is a business, printer type name of business as it appears on our records. So that's if your registered agent is actually part of a larger business. And what you're going to see here is just kind of like a lot of redundancy, especially if you're a solopreneur that's getting started with your LLC, because it's going to be what's the business address, what's your mailing address, the manager or member information required, entity email address, NAICS codes, that's required 6 digits. This is interesting because most states don't require this. But what you can do is you can look this up. And then what that is the North American Industry Classification System. That's just like, the difference between a chiropractor and a dentist. They're going to have a different NAICS code. So you'll want to look that up and be able to enter that in on your document as well. So then you're going to just sign these, and then you would mail off this PDF if you're mailing it in. But there is also the option to create an online login with the state of Connecticut, and you can do all this online as well. What I will say is that the online experience for most state websites are not great, and they skip over a lot of details. When you go through the online legal tools, a lot of them have $0 plus state fee packages, and with those packages, they're much more seamless and frictionless as far as getting your LLC set up, but there are a lot of upsell opportunities as well, so just something to be aware of. So once you file those articles of organization, you mail in your check. Next, what you want to do is create and sign an LLC operating agreement. Now, this is not required in the state of Connecticut. 5 states do require this upon forming your LLC, but this is a situation where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, let's say that your coffee shop just explodes. You have like 32 locations, but you have a partner that you have in the business, and they decide they want out of the business. Well, an LLC operating agreement, day one, will say, these are the partners, these are the roles and responsibilities, and it'll also highlight things such as, like what if a partner wants out of the business one day? Well, if that's highlighted in the LLC operating agreement, you just point to that, and that's what you agreed upon. You're probably going to get lawyers involved. It's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars in litigation and lots of time and headaches to try to figure out what that person's cut of the business is. So that's something that is highly worth getting set up. And even if you don't do it day one, it's something that you can add. The online legal tools, they will have boilerplate templates you can use. A business attorney can also create you a custom LLC operating agreement if you have a more complex situation. Now, next, what you want to do is after LLC formation, you want to set up an EIN. So there's an IRS link here, and what an EIN is, an employment identification number. It's a way for the IRS to identify your business. So if you're going to do something such as like have employees and they're going to be on payroll, you need an EIN number. This is completely free to set up for you. The online LLC services will do it for you as well for an additional fee, but just know that this link will walk you through on how to do this. Now, next, what you're going to do is obtain a business license and permit for your LLC. Now, before I get to that, I do want to make mention too, the EIN is also one of those things that makes your business look more legitimate. So like if you're applying for an office space or you're applying for a business loan, a lot of times it'll say put your social security number or your EIN on the form. The EIN just lets them know that you're a little bit more established than somebody who's just using their personal social security number for these important business tasks. So that's another reason why you may want to get it. Now, what I want to talk about is obtaining the necessary business licenses and permits for your LLC. There is an SBA resource, which is helpful here. You can actually put in the state of Connecticut, and I'll give you some additional resources here on this. But what I want to do is talk about the example of owning a brewery. If you own a brewery, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be brewing beer, you're going to be distributing beer, and you may be serving beer on premise. Those things, those 3 different tasks, may require different licenses and permits for each one. And they can happen on the federal level, the state level, and the local level. The issue that I see sometimes is people get their LLC set up and they think they're done. But like if you're a chiropractor, a dentist, you're opening up a construction company, these are examples of situations where there may be additional licenses and permits. What I would recommend is you can Google your local town or city clerk, and you can call their office and say, hey, I'm setting up XYZ type of business. You may even have the NAICS codes that you've looked up. What do I need to know as far as licenses and permits that are needed on the town level, and if there are any that are needed on the county level? Then what you can do is you can do that same process on the state level and the federal level. If you go through online legal tools, they'll actually have this service. They provide this for you for an additional fee. But if you're worried about missing out on something, they can help you research this and make sure you get set up with the proper licenses and permits. Now, what I want to talk about next is the next video in this series. We're going to deep dive on LLC formation options. And this is really important because I've seen people overspend by up to $1,500 after 5 years because they go with the wrong option. And we're going to be breaking down the state, online tools, and attorney. But we're going to be going into the specific fees of setting up your LLC. We actually have a cost calculator, if you scroll down on here further, embedded, and it's going to give you down to the dollar what it costs in your state to set up the LLC LLC. We're going to go over the star ratings and where those come from. We're going to be talking about why websites, the state website can become a pain, and it has to do with foreign and domestic LLCs. So again, we're going to break that down for you. Very helpful for you to understand now, even if you're just a solopreneur, because someday you may be growing and this comes into play. And we're also going to be going through this matrix here of questions worth asking on which route is the right path for you when you're getting your LLC set up. Before we get to that video though, I would recommend again to get this document, this checklist for yourself. And the link in the description is available to you. And then what we'll do is we'll get into video 2 of this series on the video on the screen here. So I'll catch you in the next video, and make sure that you get set up with the right path for your needs when setting up your LLC.